Hi, I'm Jenny Walterman, and this is my timeline for practicum for building leadership. Um, Back in high school, I was raised by music educators and learned violin. I started violin at 3 years of age, and so I started teaching younger students in high school, and that continued into my college years. So I first started teaching in high school, and I went to college for violin performance, and then I transferred to CMSU, which is now UCM, and transferred there to major in music education, and I continued to teach violin and built up a clientele in Warrensburg. And then I got married in 1996 and left school and worked for a while. And I worked in various corporate environments. Two that stand out to me was a Kettig company that I worked for. It was an airline filter manufacturing company, and they had no training system, no manual, no templates or guides or anything for all of the accounting tasks that I performed there. And so I started creating my own resources and created my own training manual. And then the same thing happened in Sprint when I went there and I was doing some auditing and accounting. There was no training manual. There was training onboarding by HR, but as far as my job, my role, there was not a lot of training available. And so I wrote my own handbook there too. And that tended to be a theme throughout my whole corporate career. And then I had a few babies, and then I transitioned to home and started a new music studio and continued to teach music to students, and then started homeschooling my children. During this period of time, I was directing adult and children choirs and teaching a music class for our homeschool co-op. So you could say in some way, whether it was creating curriculum materials for myself in corporate environments or teaching music in various forms, I've been doing that for 22 plus years. And then I did get divorced, and in the financial market crash of 2007, that period in there, our family music store did not survive that economic downturn. And so I was still teaching music during that time, but decided to go and finish my teaching degree. But I chose to finish my degree in business education because I feel like a lot of the business classes I took in high school, those skills have been able to sustain me for all of my adult life. And I was able to find a job and do better than minimum wage and move up in companies because of those business schools, or that those business skills that were established in my early years. And so I went to Grand Canyon University online to complete a secondary business ed program there. During this time, I was still teaching violin lessons and working for another company doing auditing and analysis for them. And then I graduated from Grand Canyon University, and I did a couple of teaching jobs. I worked at Lansing High School for a semester because I graduated mid-year. And then I worked for KCK for a year doing business sped collab. So I was helping some of their sped teachers to find ways to accommodate and modify lessons for sped students so that they could pass a business required course in order to earn that business credit for graduation. At this time, I really got introduced to transition services through the SPED department and had a lot of conversations about helping students be ready for what's next. And I very quickly realized that that was a passion of mine to help all students transition. And so at that point, I transitioned out of the SPED department and went to Paola High School, where I was working in the business department and really having conversations with staff and my colleagues and students about, how do we help to best equip students to be ready for what's next after high school. At that point, in Paola, I went ahead and decided to go back to college to get my master's degree. And at that point, I went to Fort Hays State and got my master's in instructional technology, which was very timely because I graduated in the spring of 2020. And so I was able to use a lot of my technology skills that I learned through that master's degree to help bridge the gap with technical tools and transferring curriculum to online formats, engaging students online, creating lessons digitally, all of those types of things. I was able to help teachers in my district with that. And then I decided that I wanted to complete the Building Leadership Master's program as well. So I started that in winter of 2021, and I should be wrapping that up in July of this year of 2023. In the middle of all of that, I transitioned out of the classroom and into an IPS and real world learning coordinator position for our district after I had built an internship and job shadow program that was going pretty successfully. And then I transitioned into the coordinator role where I am doing all things IPS for grades 6 through 12, developing curriculum, implementing it, or giving it to teachers to implement, gathering a lot of data, continuing to have a lot of college and career exploration opportunities for our students, and then creating methods for them to go out and explore for themselves. So, when did I decide to become a school leader? I think it was in the middle of all of the conversations and all of the helping teachers during COVID and the shutdown and the quarantine, all of that. And especially even more so when I started this master's program, ultimately started it because I thought maybe I needed it to be able to be in a director role for a school district. I needed the building leadership more than an instructional technology master's, but at the same time, I was involved in a lot of behind the scenes conversations that I'd never been privy to before that really made me aware of. I was thinking about how would I do this? How would I do it differently? Why would I do it differently? Those types of thoughts. And it drove me to want to pursue a master's program where I could perhaps position myself to be in a role to affect change in that way. Um, I plan to start my e-portfolio soonish. I'm working on it now. And I hope to have a lot of the prerequisite portfolio stuff done by June. And then when do I plan to leave the classroom for an admin position? About 1 to 2 years after I complete this master's, I will start looking for a transition into a director role in a district or some sort of CTE leadership. I'm very geared towards that frame of mind. I'm not necessarily looking to be a principal of a high school, and I'm looking for more the niche department of working with CTE, real world learning, and IPS programming. When do I plan to retire? Probably 2039 or 2040 when I'm about 65, 66 years old. My husband is 8 years older than me, so sometimes we discuss me retiring sooner. But right now, I just feel like I have all the time in the world to just kind of follow the journey as it takes me from this point on. Thanks for listening.